r/AskReddit. Former anti-vaxxers, what caused you to change your mind? Not me, but my nonna. She's always been into oils, healing rocks, potatoes and socks, all that weird things. When I was sick, she would give me a bath and run her hand right above my skin, from head to toe, to draw out the sickness. When my youngest cousin was born, she practically moved into my aunt's house and went everywhere with them. When she took him to get his shots, my nonna started fussing with the pediatrician and he just talked. All he did was explain things to her, and she finally understood how batshit she sounded. She still firmly believes that my cat is gonna steal my firstborn's breath, but we are working on it. Your cat is gonna what? It's an old wives' tale. Cats like to snuggle warm things. Babies are warm and my size as a pillow. Just sit on its chest with my face facing their face. Baby can't breathe with 2 kg weight on chest. Gets into trouble and dies because of cat. People think it's because kitty stole the breath out of them with their mouth, not they're too heavy for baby's chest. Anyone who owns a cat knows the cat always sleeps with their butt to your face anyway. Not me, but my cousin. She was extremely anti-vax for most of her life, and she refused to vaccinate her kids when they were born. Her second baby caught whooping cough, passed it to her first kid, and they both almost died. According to her, nearly losing her kids made her realize that she was an idiot for not vaccinating them. I'm allergic to the vaccine for whooping cough, and I caught it when I moved states. As a then 23-year-old man, I thought I was going to die from it. You don't just vaccinate to protect yourself, you do it to protect others. This right here. If you're not vaccinated for legitimate reasons like this, you have to depend on herd immunity, and people who are refusing to vaccinate themselves or their children are putting everyone who cannot get vaccines at an unnecessary amount of risk. I got whooping cough because an unvaccinated girl in my middle school had it. It only took until she had gotten like 4 diseases at the same time that her parents decided that their essential oils and healthy eating habits might not be doing the trick. I realized my reasons to anti-vax were actually rooted in anxiety, result of childhood trauma, and not because I was against vaccinating. The process started a little over a year ago. I just had my third, and I was homeschooling my eldest, kindergarten. The initial push to dealing with it was the regret of not being able to enroll my eldest in public school, and my newborn being at risk by having unvaccinated siblings. I took a hard look at my choices and why I hadn't vaccinated my first 2, and every last one was because of fear and guilt. I found a rockstar pediatrician who didn't once judge me and got all my kids caught up. I have 3 fantastic kids that are now fully vaccinated, and I'm successfully on the road to recovery, so I can be the best person I can be for my kids. They deserve it. Whilst some anti-vaxxers are crazy, I honestly think the majority are parents like yourself that are just scared and worried for their children. Even pro-vax people can err when faced with the idea of sticking needles in their baby, causing them pain etc., and misinformation about what goes into vaccines and their supposed dangers can be really scary, especially for new parents. Obviously a little research goes a long way, and most parents know it is for the best, but that doesn't make it any less worrying for those that only want to do the best for their children. I'm really glad you realize the benefits outweigh the few and far between negatives and got your kids caught up. You're a great parent. I met my mother-in-law, who is the ultimate anti-vaxxer, and realized how ducking crazy she sounds, and I didn't want to end up like that. Also, I have a baby daughter who I would like to live a long healthy life. How do you feel for the autism people who became scapegoats and all this? Hey, student nurse here. Vaccines do not cause autism, so don't worry. The researcher who published it had their license taken away from being paid to make that up. It's been debunked. Well, after years of deluding myself into the belief that vaccines were evil, I finally hit the wall. I learned more about vaccines and why they were really necessary. I think it was my fear of the unknown that prevented me from seeing that science saves lives. I had a really good teacher in that regard, and it ended up being a pretty great time in my life. I mean, on top of realizing that shots weren't bad things, I started getting an allowance and my 10th birthday party was ducking lit. You're breathtaking. No, you're breathtaking. My now wife was an anti-vaxxer. I generally go with what she says most of the time, because I cannot be bothered to argue. However, when we were discussing getting married and having kids, I was surprised at how strongly I felt about. I was prepared to walk away from the love of my life, rather than not vaccinate. I gave all of the reasons. I'm from a third world country, and she is European. I have seen too much shit from a lack of vaccination program to sit on the fence on this. She came around. When our first was born, he was quite ill. I don't think we were in danger of losing him, but just that tiny bit of danger reiterated the point of protecting them and others from illnesses. My wife is now more on top of the vaccination dates for our kids than I am. A friend of hers had a baby recently and expressed some anti-vaccination sentiments. My wife calmly told her that not only would she be putting her own kids in danger, but that she would be weaponizing her child against others. Quite a turnaround. I'll give you an historical one. In 1736 I lost one of my sons, a fine boy of 4 years old, by the smallpox, taken in the common way. I long regretted bitterly, and still regret, that I had not given it to him by inoculation. This I mention for the sake of parents who omit that operation, on the supposition that they should never forgive themselves if a child died under it, my example showing that the regret may be the same either way and that, therefore, the safer should be chosen. Benjamin Franklin. It's worth pointing out that smallpox inoculations were extremely risky back then. In Franklin's time, they were literally giving the child a live smallpox virus and hoping that by controlling the circumstances they would have a less severe case. I can't fault someone for being hesitant to straight up give their kid smallpox. I was caught into the anti-vax propaganda after my younger sister was said to have autism. Reddit helped me change my mind, with people providing evidence of anti-vaxxers' stupidity. What can I say, except, you're welcome. Kind of boring, but I have a whack job grandmother who believes in all the pseudoscience health. Crystal healing, electromagnetic communications cause cancer, vaccines are bad, eat apricot pits to cure cancer, the whole 9 miles. When I was a kid she tried to teach me all of this stuff like it was gospel, and I believed her, because I was a kid, and why would my grandmom be wrong about something? Unfortunately for her, the minute I turned like 7, I got a huge hyperfixation on biology and quickly learned that all the stuff she spouted was utter nonsense. I'm autistic, and I was like the stereotypical autistic kid, where they just know a duck ton about one particular subject, and devour any kind of learning material related to it they can get their hands on. I'm actually still like that. Except now I can get a degree for it. It was not hard for me to realize that none of the things she believed made any sense, even as a kid. I got some Asperger's, and I'm always consuming certain subjects like that. 11 years ago, I spent at least 2,000 hours studying the US Civil War. Quite an interesting subject. Then it was various economic and financial topics. More recently, woodworking. Now, pandemic-related stuff. I didn't like needles, then my mom told me I could stay home from school the next day. I was 6. A lot of anti-vaxxers are just rationalizing their fear of needles. I was a teenager, used to believe that if I got sick, my immune system would handle it and make me stronger. Like most youth, I believed I was invulnerable. I figured thousands of years of ancestors had survived without vaccines, and so could I. It was years before I realized that before vaccines, people didn't just heal the viruses away, most of them died or were crippled by illness their whole lives.